aware of the world around you. If you got that, like imagine an equal right to life circle. Everything inside the circle gets an equal right to life, everything outside of it doesn't. So, like, they might say, like, I think to get in the circle, it's not anything like that. It's you've got to be minimally aware of the world around you, then you're in. Okay, we're going to respond to that with the thought experiment that my brother teaching on. Since the philosophy ground for biology, he thinks in thought experiments. So we call that the zoo scene. Like imagine we go to the zoo and we're hanging out from the elephant exhibit, and then a gunman shows up and starts shooting. He gets 6 bullets fired before he's tackled by security. Let's think about those bullets. The first bullet goes to the bushes and kills the world's unluckiest cockroach. It's okay, you didn't do that. The world's unluckiest cockroach. That's funny to me because I got a pretty dark sense of humor. So does anything make that unlucky? I think it's the second bullet goes to the bushes and kills a squirrel. The third bullet kills an elephant. There's a big bullet. The fourth bullet kills a human newborn. The fifth bullet kills a toddler. And the sixth bullet kills an adult stockfoot of love. Now, the question I'm asking is, how many murders do we have? Not what is the law right now, what should the law be? How many of these things should be in the equal right to life circle? Well, if we're trying to figure out, like, if we're sensing the worldview that would get you into being minimally aware of the world around you, how many murders do we have? 6. They're all minimally aware of the world around them. Like, if you don't know if cockroaches are minimally, like, at least squirrels clearly are. They store nuts. Like, they're clearly aware of the world around them. So this is a big problem with the view. It's not the only problem with the view, but this is the one that we're going to push hard against because this is designed to be the most effective. I'm going to say, I just don't think, like, it seems like under your view, squirrels are equally valuable to cockroaches. I know this is sad view. Like, I don't think this is the world that I live in. I don't think I live in a world where squirrels are equal to dolphins. And we're going to push really hard against that. Now, they might say something else. They might say, okay, well, I think what you choose to be right life cycle is being self-aware. You need to be, like, able to understand that your unique self is going to exist over a period of time. Okay? Choo-choo. Cockroach, squirrel, elephant, newborn, toddler, adult woman. How many murders do we have? I count 3. The adult woman, the toddler, and the elephant. They're not the newborn. Elephants are self-aware. At least to some extent. You can put a red dot on an elephant's forehead, put it in front of a mirror. It'll rub with its trunk against its forehead. This means that it can tell that it's looking at its own reflection in an elephant. Self-aware test. They also mourn their dead in really, really interesting ways. So they're self-aware. Newborns aren't so. Newborns are able to do that until at least 2 or 3 months, maybe 6. So this view has 2 big problems. And all of these personal views have one of these 2 problems. They're either letting too many things into the equal right to life circle, like squirrels, or they're excluding too many things, like newborns. And when we figure out which one of those it is, we're going to push hard against those things. As a father who's been present at the birth of my 3 sons, I am highly, highly confident that newborns should be in the equal right to life circle. I'm going to push hard against the view that that's not true. So being pro-life is the only reasonable conclusion of the equal rights argument. In order to be consistently pro-choice, you have to be an extremist. You have 3 extremist options that you can choose from if you don't want to adhere to the modest conclusion that strong and still babies in a woman. You can take more than one of these 3 things, but you're stuck with at least one of them. And the equal rights argument illustrates the first 2. You either have to be an extreme animal rights activist who says that squirrels are equal to toddlers, or you have to be pro-against them. The only way for the first person to avoid those 2 extremist options is to move to bodily rights. Bodily rights arguments are completely different things. Because the way the argument is working is that for the sake of argument, they are conceding personhood. They're saying, fine, the unborn is a person for the sake of argument, and I think you can still have an abortion. Why? Because of the kind of relationship that it has with the mother's body. This is not an anti-Christian argument. Totally different thing. one of our good friends and one of the members of our advisory board, Trent Horn from Catholic Answers, has made a really, really helpful distinction between two different types of bodily rights arguments. There's one that Trent calls the sovereign zone argument. This is a classic: a woman has the right to do with anything inside of her body. She can do everything else, anything inside of her body. And there's a more nuanced version called the right to refuse argument. This is a woman that has the right to refuse to be hooked up to other people. For time purposes, I'm going to talk to you more about the right to refuse argument, but I'm going to say how we come to respond to the sovereign zone argument. This is the one that we just hear a whole lot more often. What we want to do is we want to show them a few implications of their view. What if they're right? What if a woman should have the right to do anything she wants with anything inside of her body? Well, there's a few implications of that. The first one, this is one that proves the right to refuse argument too, is there can be no restrictions on abortion at all. Almost all pro-choice people these days make bodily rights arguments, and surprisingly few of them think there should be no restrictions on abortion. Most of them don't defend euthanasia abortion. Most of them don't defend sex selection abortions. Most of them don't defend birth control abortions. But if the thing that justifies abortion is she can do whatever she wants with anything inside of her body, that is just as true in the third trimester as it is in the first. Where's the baby in the third trimester? Still in her body. So this is the problem. This is the other extremist option that they have. Either they've got to be pro-squirrel equality, pro-infanticide, or they've got to be a Hillary Clinton-style abortion extremist where all abortions are okay. And nobody wants to be like Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton doesn't even want to be like Hillary Clinton. That was me. I should be nice to Hillary because with that compromise. We want to make the comfortable pro-choice position. We want people to have to choose between an uncomfortable extremist position or becoming pro-life. So when I point out this problem to pro-choice people, it doesn't always change them right away. It makes them uncomfortable, they still need more. So there's a couple of other implications that we talk about, and they both revolve around this drug called thalidomide. Thalidomide is one of the great strategies of 20th century medicine. In the late 50s and early 60s, mainly in Europe, for a little while, doctors were giving thalidomide to pregnant women to help them with morning sickness. What nobody knew during those years was that if you give a pregnant woman thalidomide, her baby will either die or will be born with severe defects. Like babies by that time would be born without arms and or legs. And there's an argument that we use. It's not our argument. We're not the first apologists to talk about the idea of like thalidomide as a pro-life argument. Dr. Lewis was part of this. But before I explain the argument to you, I wanted to take a moment and think about this. This is not just a thought experiment. This really happened. This happened to hundreds of people, and I've noticed that since I think I've spent some time learning about some of the victims of thalidomide. I've done a better job of talking to people about it in a way that is appropriately discussed. And so for just a moment, I'm going to put a picture up on the screen of one child who's the victim of thalidomide. It's graphic, it's hard to look at. You can close your eyes if you want. I think if we're going to use thalidomide as a pro-life argument, then we should grapple with how devastating this actually was. But people who are still there in the 60s and 70s, without arms and their legs, still struggling with that. Pictures of that. This is our important. So imagine a pregnant woman decided to move it a little bit. We're not saying this is how pro-choice women are, we're not saying how women have abortions in their life. Just imagine, thought experiment. A woman, she's got really bad morning sickness, she's tried everything, nothing's worked, and she convinces her husband, a doctor, to give her some abortion, knowing what to do. And he does, he takes it. And her son is born without that. Should it be legal for her to do that? That is the question we're going to ask. Should it be legal for her to do that? Well, most pro-choice people feel pretty uncomfortable with that. They want to say no. It shouldn't be. But now we're in kind of an awkward situation. Why are they saying no? It's wrong to deprive the child of arms and their legs. But now they're in the awkward position of saying that the child has the right to arms and legs, but does not have the right to be dismembered, to not be dismembered in an abortion. That's kind of an awkward argument to try to pull off. Now, this can make pro-choice people pretty uncomfortable, but sometimes again, it's not quite enough. You ever met those people who bite every bullet, who are just like, they don't want to concede anything because they don't want to lose? We don't want to give up. What we want to do is we want to hand them up the bullet that's going to be the most uncomfortable possible. I want them to walk away later and like, I had to say that to win? Oh, that's not good. That's what I want to have happen. And they're like, I'm going to make this really uncomfortable. And this isn't quite uncomfortable enough for some pro-choice people. So my brother put his spin on it and modified it to make it harder for pro-choice people to fight this bullet. What if a woman took the little line for the sole purpose of performing her child? Again, this is not what we're saying pro-choice people are like. This would be a very, very evil person. Well, let's just imagine this. Again, this is a thought experiment. Go with me here. What if the woman from the first story, let's say a couple of years later, she gets pregnant again? And she has a very different pregnancy experience. She's not having any more incidents. But she's just thinking. She's thinking about her 2-year-old son who doesn't have life. She's thinking how unfair it would be if she had a perfect child. So she convinces her husband again to get her delivery for the sole purpose of supporting her child. This is much harder for her to bite that bullet. And for a while, that was confusing to me. It's confusing me that so many people would change their minds. But this is the second most persuasive argument we use. The first most persuasive by far is the equal rights argument. The little rights and sensitive form of fetus, second most persuasive argument we use. And for a while, that was confusing to me because it seems obvious that it's worse to dismember someone than to deform them. I don't think it confuses me anymore. The more I talk to pro-choice people, the more I'm convinced of the amazing ability that a human being has to believe what it wants to believe. I don't think this is true of all pro-choice people, but a lot of pro-choice people, I think, are pro-choice because they want to. Their lifestyle doesn't work if they're not pro-choice. So they've spent sometimes years rationalizing to themselves to be pro-choice, telling them that whatever they have to tell themselves to be pro-choice. It's not a baby, it's not a baby, it's not a baby. You're bodily right, bodily right, bodily right. For life is mean, for life is mean, for life is mean. Like whatever they have to say to convince themselves and to build on it, really rationalizing. That's what's going on for a lot of pro-choice people. But here's the key. No one in this universe has spent years rationalizing the right of women to deform their children with the little. So their moral compass is working on this question, where it might not be on the abortion question. So they have to choose between their commitment to abortion and the obvious fact that it is wrong to intentionally deform children. And so most will choose their devotion to abortion. But I'm encouraged by how many people don't do that, by how many people become pro-life just because they finally heard a good response to population. So with my last 2 minutes, I want to tell you where you can go if you want to learn more. We started URI because we really wanted to help, especially high school and college students, have better conversations and change pro-choice minds. So we partnered with Students for Life because they've done all the hard work of starting all these clubs, and now we get to go and train them. The problem is Students for Life is just too dang effective. They've got over 1,000 clubs now. We can't get to 1,000 clubs in person anymore. There's no way to do that. But we want to be able to help all of them. I want to help this entire generation of pro-life people to make better arguments than the past generation did. So the only solution to the problem is we need to do creative courses that you can all take on your own. So last year we produced a course called The Quick for Life. Wow, that link looks terrible. Okay. It's thequickcourse.com. You know what you're doing. We need to make that not a hyperlink for the next conference. So what this is you can learn all the different things. So we use the teach seminars and more. There's 29 HD video lessons. You can download the audio versions. If you're more of an audio learner and you want to put them on your phone and listen to them when you're driving or walking around campus, you can learn that way. There's also group activities. We custom made this for Students for Life Plus. We want you to master these arguments and these dialogue tests. So we're giving you discussion questions and role plays. You guys can practice with each other so you can get really good at this and go do outreach. We have a test that happens every other